Okay, so to kick things off, why don't you tell me a bit about yourself?
Okay, so where do I start? So I guess in terms of Amazon, so I've been selling on Amazon for the last almost 4 years. So it'll be 4 years in yeah, like April, May time. Before that, I sort of worked in construction, did construction for like maybe like on and off for like 5, 6 years, and I just didn't like it at all. I didn't really enjoy the whole 9 to 5 thing. I remember I used to sit in meetings and everyone around me used to be like so buzzing and so excited about like the next project and what we're going to get up to. And I used to just sit there thinking, oh, this is just the most uninteresting thing in my life. And I just could not get excited about it. So I had to find something which was going to excite me and just do that. And then that's when I sort of stumbled into Amazon. So yeah, I've been doing it 4 years. I've not looked back since going sort of full time. It's been yeah, sort of life changing to be fair, for me and my family. It makes a big difference.
What kind of construction were you doing?
So it was a bit of a mix. I worked for sort of like main contractors, and then also like sort of subcontractors. A lot of it was sort of procurement based. So I was purchasing a lot of materials, and then also I sort of moved into the supply chain management side of things, where I was doing a lot of management of supply chain. And sort of this is when I was working for the main contractor, and I was working for a lot of supply chain management stuff, working with the other sort of subcontractors, getting them in place and stuff like that.
I was going to be cheeky there and say, so you're telling me supply chain management involves supply chain management?
No, yeah, surprisingly it does. um
I think that's interesting to hear because a lot of people who get into Amazon, a lot of people I speak to are from trade professions, aren't they? So it's interesting that you come from a similar background.
yeah, it seems you sort of get people from all walks of life. I think people dive into it thinking it's going to be a lot easier than whatever they're doing, and then yeah, they probably find out the hard way. It's not actually as easy as they think, but they still
Yeah.
manage to make it work anyway.
Definitely not a passive income like it was originally touted online, is it?
No, that annoys me when I see that. And I still see that today. It's the most unpassive thing you can possibly do. And I think even like you can probably scale it to a certain level, but even then, it's not passive. And if you do run it as a passive business, then you're missing out on an awful lot. And to be honest, I don't really think it's possible. Even I think that word is thrown around far too much.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I can tell you in my experience, the times where I've been passive with the business is when I've been chasing shiny object syndrome. I've been letting my VA team run the business for maybe a couple of months. And then in a couple of months, I realize everything's gone tits up and, you should never leave other people to fully run your business. It doesn't work out.
Exactly that. And I think, yeah, the day you start letting your VAs take over and run things, then it doesn't go as well as you think it's going to go. Their mindset is completely different to yours, because
Yeah.
it's not their business, it's not their money, it's not their risk, it's not for them. It doesn't matter so much. Whereas for you, if it's your own business, it's everything you've got.
Yeah.
And the way you think about things and the way you run it is wildly different to how a VA would. Yeah.
It's the paradox of being a business owner. The type of employee you want to hire is someone who's very entrepreneurial, but then someone who's very entrepreneurial wouldn't work for someone else. So,
Yes, exactly that. Hit the nail on the head.
okay, so you were in construction. You said you were in construction for 5 years. What were you doing before then?
So before then, what was I doing? So I went to college, then uni. After uni, I didn't stay at uni for very long. After uni, I was an estate agent for like I was an estate agent for maybe like a year and a half. Not that long, but that was quite good. I quite like that.
I'm all right in
Uh,
saying you went to Bristol Uri, right?
I did. Yeah,
Yeah, Uri represent me too.
yeah. It was great. I absolutely loved it. I think going to uni was probably the best thing I ever did. But then leaving after the first year was probably the second best thing I ever did, because I met loads of people, had like a great time, and then I left before it started getting serious, and actually had to put some work in, which I wasn't willing to do. I was just there for the social, really.
I got to the end of my second year and I realized I partied the entire year and I hadn't studied once, so I had to repeat my second year.
Wow, that's what I did in my first year. I think I think I didn't even have like much to do. I had like 12 hours of lectures a week, which is like next to nothing realistically. And I showed up to maybe 2, 3 of them. And then it got to the end of the year, I had so many retakes to do just because I just did not try. And then I thought, right, I can do all these retakes and then I can sort of battle through the next 2 years, or I can just sort of knock it on the head and just crack on with getting a job and doing something else, which I'm very glad I did in the end, because I don't think I would have lasted another 2 years there, to be fair.
No, I think it's a very common story, isn't it? The college dropout who ends up going into business and making far more money than they would ever make working for someone else.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think, I don't know, it's probably a bit controversial. People disagree with it. I don't think there's any benefit in going to university these days.
I actually completely agree with that.
Yeah, I think experience is far more powerful than a degree.
Unless you unless you're a doctor or something, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If you won't get something to like specialist, like like you say, lawyer, doctor, something like that, where you physically need the degree to get that job, then I think that's absolutely great. But I think going to uni just because other people go to uni and you have absolutely no idea what you want to do, you want to study something so broad, I just don't think it's worth it. I think you're much better off just getting an experience. Like, you see so many uni like people, graduates these days, they're in like 50, 60 grand's worth of debt. They're trying to find a job. Their job's going to pay them like, I don't know, 20, maybe 30 at a push, K a year. Takes them forever to do their student loans. And every job they apply for, they was asking for experience. Yeah. So, well, how can you get experience when you've been at uni for the last 3 years? And like, yeah, I think in most businesses, you learn a lot more for experience. Like, if I was to ever hire someone, it wouldn't be based on what degree they have. It'd be based on what they've done in the past in terms of experience, because I think that's far more valuable.
Yeah, I'm kind of biased because when I graduated uni, it was a time in the UK, kind of globally, but in the UK particularly, people who graduated just couldn't get jobs. Even I had friends who had PhDs, master's degrees. They had firsts in their degree at uni, and for 3 years I couldn't get a postgrad job. And I was a delivery driver, and I used to deliver to this girl's house who was my age. And every week we'd be talking about how many jobs we'd applied for and we couldn't get. And she was getting funded by her parents at the time, and she had to send her parents proof that she applied to 300 jobs and didn't get any. And it was in the office I worked in. There were 15 people in the office, and there were 17 degrees in the office because everyone had degrees or a master's. No one could get a job. And then when I finally did get a job in tech, it was through nepotism. One of my friends referred me, and my degree didn't even help me. So as soon as that happened, I thought, well, was the debt of uni worth it? The experience was worth it, but
Yeah.
it didn't actually help me get a job. For me personally.
I agree. Yeah, I think everyone who I went to uni with, and I know who've been to uni, none of them, not a single one, has actually got a job within the degree they actually studied. Like you said, I think we must have been at uni at the same time, I'm sure, because we're a similar age, so it wouldn't surprise me. We probably crossed paths there. But a lot of people who went to uni, they struggled big time as well. And like I said, none of them work in the field which they actually studied.
Yeah, it's the other thing. You study music and then you end up working behind a bar or for an accountancy firm or something.
Yeah, exactly that. So for me, like, especially with my kids, I wouldn't be pushing them to go to university unless it was like a doctor or a lawyer or something like that they actually wanted to pursue. But if it was just a broad subject, then yeah, I wouldn't bother. Like I say, it's not worth the debt now. I think before, like when we went, I guess when you went as well, the fees weren't so much. Like, you're paying it as like $3,000 a year or something, and then I think it was like the year we left or the year after we left or something, they upped it. They like times it by 3, and it's now like $9,000 a year.
Yeah.
And for that, I do not think it's worth it at all.
Not only did they triple the cost, but they got rid of the grants that we used to get. So,
yeah, okay.
To anyone who might be watching this, when I went to uni, I paid £3,000 a year, and I got a grant per year which paid me, I don't know, $3,500 a year, which I didn't have to pay back to go there. So you can't get any of that now.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's a lot. I don't think I got the grant. Not sure why.
It's not poor enough.
Well, possibly.
Think about it this way as well, though. with the advancements in AI, with the advancements in automations, if you do get into heavy debt now to go to uni, what job is going to be around in 5 years in the same way it is now? It's so hard to tell what you should actually study.
Yeah, you're right. Like everything's changing so quickly. Like tech's growing massively. So like you say, it's forever changing. And yeah, just get experience. I think it's worth so much more. Yeah, definitely 100%.
So you mentioned your kids. This is a question I was excited to ask you about. My partner and I are talking about doing that soon, and I find that I'm so busy with my workload. I love what I do, but I'm so busy. And when stuff happens in life, it could be a family member gets sick, it could be problems with your missus or your man, it could be you get sick with the flu. I find it so challenging to balance the work life with life problems sometimes. And I wonder how challenging that is when you throw kids into the mix as well. So I was wondering if you could tell me how you balance that so far. Because you got three, don't you?
Two.
Two kids.
Two, and that's it. No more. I think it's tough. Like the first, I think when I first had my daughter, I was still working at the construction company. And then I left. I left just before she was one. And luckily I could work from home, so it wasn't that bad. And like, it was like that last year at work, I didn't like it anyway. Like I was not enjoying it. I didn't want to be there. So I didn't really do much work. I wasn't working that hard. So because I was working from home all the time, it gave me a lot of time to sort of spend with the my daughter and stuff. Luckily, my missus, she doesn't work. She's not worked since she's had my oldest, just because it's, I don't know, a couple of reasons really. Like, firstly, if she got a job, we don't really know what she'd do. She never really had like a career. Like she's never really had sort of like a career and been like super focused on one sort of area. She sort of jumped from job to here, there, and everywhere. So we wouldn't really know what she'd get into. Secondly, if she did get a job, it would probably just pay the nursery fees. Then after that, you'd be left with maybe a couple £100, which I don't think is worth it. And I think it's nice having her around, being able to do everything. I think she enjoys, like we're obviously super fortunate that we can afford her not to work, and the money I make through Amazon just means, yeah, she doesn't have to get a job and stuff like that, which is really good. So she's super hands-on, like she's with them all the time. So I think she's probably the biggest factor in how to juggle all of it, because yeah, she deals with it 9 to 5, which is, yeah, absolutely amazing for me. So it means I can sort of focus on Amazon, and she sort of focus on, I guess, her job is the kids, and my job is Amazon and anything else as well. So
That's literally my ambition, man. It's I work so hard because when we do eventually have kids, my partner wants to be a full-time mum, and I want to give her that. It's not even freedom, is it? Because it's a job in itself. But I think it's crazy that our society has gotten to a point where you need a dual income to be able to survive. Like, if both people were working full time, where's the time for the kids? It's crazy.
it is, yeah, it's absolutely crazy, and the amount, like, it's just so expensive. And I think you compare us to like other countries like Spain and stuff, where the childcare is like, it's a fraction of the cost. Like it's like 10% of the cost as what we pay, and it's just, yeah, it's crazy how you need to have the two incomes. I went out for dinner last night, and with a couple who are having a baby next year, and they're they're like, in their head they're thinking, like, how are we going to afford this on sort of one salary when the other one can't work and stuff like that. And it's crazy. It's got to that point. Like and I guess a lot of people in the country wonder why the birth rates are so low, and people aren't buying houses, people aren't having kids, people aren't doing this. It's like, because they're not going to afford to. Like everything's just so expensive at the minute.
I always find that
Mad.
I always find that frustrating when there's like a counter movement to hustle culture where people are pushing back and saying it's toxic, and then to me I'm like, the economy is in the toilet right now. There's hustle culture because people are desperate for money. Of course, people are working way harder than they probably should. No, we shouldn't be in a position where everyone has to work 3 jobs, but most people are. And
Yeah,
it's
exactly. You haven't got a choice, have you, these days?
no, literally, and that's one reason why I'm so passionate about Amazon, because this was a side hustle for me. It's now my permanent thing, and whatever you decide to do to earn extra money, if you can do it alongside what you're already doing, it's golden, isn't it? Because in the first, like, let's say you're running an LTD in the first year of business, you shouldn't really be taking money out of your business. So you need to have one job to support yourself whilst you're working another. Well, that's actually a good question. How long were you doing Amazon before you started to take money out?
It was a year.
Yeah.
So I did Amazon for a year, and then I quit my job. Literally, yeah, like the same month. A year later, and then I started paying myself like a few months after that. So the first year was just everything I earned just got reinvested back into the business to help it grow. I left my job of probably way too early than I should have. I should have been earning a lot more, but it got to the point where I just hated my job so much. I just could not stay there any longer. So I knew I just had to make Amazon work, and it made a big difference. Leaving it, the group business grew, massively. But yeah, I probably wouldn't advise people to leave as early as I did, because it was pretty too early.
Cody Sanchez, I don't know if you know her on social media. She's based in the US, but she actually talked in one of her videos about the data on entrepreneurs who stay in work and the ones who leave their jobs. And the ones who stay in their jobs, I can't remember the statistic. It was, as a percentage, you were a lot more likely to succeed if you stayed in your job. And speaking from experience, I understand why that is, because I was actually made redundant. I jumped straight into Amazon as the next thing I was doing. And luckily for me, I've got a supportive partner who gave me permission to pursue this full time rather than getting another job. But the reason why people succeed more if they stay in their job is because cash flow is the biggest hindrance in any business, And with Amazon, your funds don't get cleared for 2 weeks. Then when you process a disbursement, it takes 3 to 5 business days. So having a job and having that income to support, if you have times in your business where there's a problem with cash flow, that helps keep the business alive. I've found times, so I've been trying to find 5 grand in the next 7 days. And, I got to a point where I was pretty good at finding money pretty quickly. But yeah, I can see why people stay in jobs. And I think to anyone listening to this, if you're in a full-time job and you're not quite sure if you should quit and focus on Amazon, I would say definitely stay in the job until you're earning enough money that what you take out doesn't stop your growth in the business.
Yeah, I think cash flow is got to be the killer of majority of businesses, startup businesses, easily. And people just not knowing their numbers generally, that kills a lot of businesses, especially in Amazon, because there's just so much leakage everywhere. But you definitely, having your main income is so important, because as soon as you start taking money out, it stops your growth. Like, you need that money to invest in order to grow the business. If you're taking the money out, you need to find the money from somewhere else. So that's going to be either credit cards or loans or something like that. And then people end up getting themselves into a bit of a sort of sticky situation if they don't know how to manage it properly. And I think Amazon's risky, I guess, same as the majority of businesses are super risky. So having like your main sort of second income being your 9 to 5 it's super helpful, and it helps a lot, because if something does happen with Amazon, you can fall back on that. Then likewise, if something happens to your 9 to 5, you can sort of fall back on Amazon as well.
Yep.
But yeah, I always think having multiple income streams is pretty key, just to sort of minimize risk, which is something I'm trying to focus on a lot more anyway.
One thing that I was always driven by when I started was that when I was building a business in the beginning, and even more so now, I'm trying to build a lifestyle, I guess. I'm not trying to give myself another job. I'm always trying to be working on my business rather than in my business, automating everything I can, getting reliable staff members to delegate the tasks which I shouldn't really be doing, having that kind of CEO mindset, which I know the CEO term has a very negative connotation these days, but you get what I mean. Like, in 10 years time, regardless of what business it is I'm doing, I want to have the freedom that if I want to if I want to do Tim Ferriss's 4-hour work week, I can. I don't want to work 16 hours a day for the rest of my life unless I want to.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's exactly how I look at it as well. It's a lifestyle thing. Like, the reason I'm doing Amazon is because I can outsource a lot of the work, and it does allow me to spend a lot of time with the family doing other things, and working on other businesses and stuff like that. I don't want a business where I am working on it all the time, and it just sort of takes over your life, which is why I do Amazon. Like, I could probably a lot of people say this to me, is that I could probably save so much money in the business. Like I say, for example, if I did my own prep, or if I did something else, or if I ran something else differently. But if I did that, I'd then have to spend twice the amount of time on it, which is not worth it for me. I'd rather sacrifice that bit of money in order to get the freedom and the lifestyle I want. So any business or job I want to do going forwards, it has to be tailored around the lifestyle I want, and it won't be sitting in an office 9 to 5. Yeah, because I can't do that. I won't do that again.
I've done that, and it's not for me either.
Yeah,
But
it's not what I want to do.
no. I see. Again, I'm biased because we have a prep center, but to me, from the beginning, I never actually did the exercise, but there's an exercise where you set yourself an hourly rate that you think you're worth, and it should be something ridiculous, like £100 an hour, and anything less than that, you should delegate to someone else, because the tasks that aren't worth £100 an hour gives you that time to focus on building the elements of the business that will eventually make you up to £100 an hour, well, past that even. So when it came to prep work, yes, okay, you would save money on the prep, but the time you're investing in the prep, and the space it takes in your house, whatever, that time does have a cost. And if that cost is me not developing the business in a bigger way, then it was a cost I was unwilling to spend. So I probably got a prep center a little bit too early. But I also know people who live in London and live in apartment complexes where they can't do their own prep. So yeah, I would say if you're going to go for a prep center, probably a good idea to make sure you've got enough capital for it to be worth it, because there's no point spinning in the hamster wheel of earning enough profit to pay the prep, but then you're breaking even.
Exactly that. And I think, like you said, like you sort of touched on it, I've said it loads of times in groups and socials and all sorts. Like, when you're outsourcing, it's a time versus money thing, right? Like, how much time have you got? How much money have you got? Have you got enough sort of time to be able to do it? Then if so, great. Have you got enough money to be able to outsource it and not affect you and affect the business? Then yeah, perfect. You don't want to sort of rush into it. And if like you say, the time you're spending doing it, is that hindering you from working other areas of the business, which is going to make you more money? So if you're spending all the time prepping and not enough time sourcing, when every month you've got a load of cash left over, then it's probably time to get a prep center and then get that money spent, because you'll be able to make a lot more buying and sourcing stock in the same period that you would be prepping 20 boxes or whatever it is.
Yeah, literally. Okay, so you said you've been going on Amazon for about 4 years. So does that put you to 2019, or was it 2020 you started?
2020, I think.
Yeah.
Or 2021, is it?
Yeah, the reason I ask is because a lot of people believe that Amazon is a lot harder now, and people who have older accounts, particularly the older accounts where you got daily payouts, which I think they've actually finished now. But what would you say is very different now on Amazon in comparison to when you started?
It's so much harder now than when I started. Like, being truthful, if I started now and had to start from the beginning, I probably wouldn't have stuck it out like I did back then. I would have given up a lot quicker. Whereas, because it's a lot harder. Whereas when I first started, it was on easy mode. Like, it was so easy.
Like the Wild West, wasn't it?
It was like there was very few Discord groups, which helped because that didn't sort of saturate everything. Then like the first 6 months, maybe a bit less than that, we barely even looked at Keeper. Like, we barely even knew what it was. Like, all we were focused on, because it was coming out at the end of COVID, all we were focusing on was like hot tubs, chimneys, swimming pools. We saw the price on Amazon, and we thought, right, we can go to B&Q Homebase and we can just buy everything they've got, and then just sell it. And if me and my missus used to drive to Homebase, there's like 4 Homebases around us. So we used to drive to one Homebase, get like as many chimneys as I can fit in my car, which was about 6, but quite big, hefty ones. As soon as I bought them, I'd diss them on FBM, drive home to drop them off. I would have already sold like 2 by the time I got home. And so I'd dump them off, we'll go to the next Homebase, do the same thing, next Homebase, do the same thing, and then just do that on repeat, and then go to all the B&Qs. And then we just did that, and everything was FBM as well. So you were getting paid out so much quicker. You didn't have to send stuff in and wait for it to sell.
Probably nicer profit margins as well, I imagine.
Oh yeah, brilliant. It was like 40% margins.
Came up now on Amazon these days, outside of PL.
Yeah, the margins were unbelievable. And this isn't ROI either. This is like margin. Like it was unreal. And then yeah, it's just patio heaters, like swimming pools, and they just used to. And then this was like the start of Amazon to Amazon as well. Like the start when people sort of really understood what Amazon to Amazon was. Not many people were doing it, and it was just amazing. It was just so good. It was so easy. And then it just got it just sort of changed over the last few years. It just got a lot more saturated. There's a lot more people on it. More Discord groups appeared. More sort of educational stuff appeared around Amazon. So it just, I guess the same with anything, right? More people come on, just makes it a bit tougher, but it's still like, it's still doable, 100%. It's just very different to what it used to be. Cash flow is very different. Like when I first started, I used a credit card from sort of day one. I had a bit of money in the bank, but a lot of it was on the credit card. But I could afford to do that then, because I knew everything I'd list, it would sell generally the same day, and it wouldn't take long to sell. So within like a week or so, all the stock would be sold. Because it was all FBM as well, you'd have to obviously wait for it to get shipped in, wait for FC transfers, stuff like that. So everything was a lot quicker. So you got money back a lot quicker. So you could pay off the credit cards a lot quicker. Now, if I wouldn't advise using the credit card straight away at all, because you don't know if the product you're going to buy, how quickly that is going to sell. You could have 50 people jump on the listing, 100 people jump on the listing, and then next thing you know, you're going to sell that for a loss, or you're holding it out for 2 months or something like that. So I definitely wouldn't use a credit card now, because I think it's far too riskier when you're starting out, until you're actually accomplished and get like a steady sort of cash flow disbursements every single daily or whatever it is, and you know exactly what's coming in. Then stay away. But it was a lot easier back then. But I miss it. It would be great to go back to do that again. But it's still very much doable now, and it's still working.
Well, I think although it's harder, I think you and I, well, because you've got easy arbitrage, you're fully aware, but how many like 19-year-olds have you met who are doing 10, 20 grand profit in a month because they found the golden goose on Amazon? You know, it's definitely still possible. One negative to the saturation with all the groups popping up is, okay, there's more eyeballs looking at it. But the positive side of that is now you've got really good communities who can help you find good products, who can help you avoid the pitfalls, because Amazon has so many blockades, doesn't it? It seems like sometimes it feels like they're deliberately trying to make it as hard as possible, which is quite a challenge that I get frustrated by sometimes.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, look, I wouldn't be where I was today if it wasn't for Discord groups anyway. Like when I first started, there was one sort of group around, and that was on Telegram, and then it sort of slowly moved over to Discord. A few others popped up, but I was in every Discord group going, and if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be where I was today anyway. So I think that they're super helpful. Like I've like I said, I wouldn't be where I was without them. And like you say, having the information readily available from someone who's sort of experienced it. Like I think someone asked an easy arbitrage of the day, because people obviously ask questions all day, every day, and I'm always answering them. And some guy was like, how do you know all the answers to all these questions? Like everyone's like, we're asking these
Experience and repetition.
Yeah, is that, how do you know? It's like, when he said, do you go on TikTok to find the answer? Like, do I go and search the answer to tell him? And I was like, no, it's just like you said, just experience. Like you've been doing it for long enough that either me or someone I know has encountered that problem, and I've dealt with it, they've dealt with it. Being in Discord groups, people share things, like someone will say, oh, this has happened to me, does anyone know how to fix it? Someone else might say, oh yeah, this happened to me last week, this is what I did, and it worked like that. So you just sort of absorb all that information over the last sort of 4 years or so, and then it allows me to sort of tell other people that as well. So it's all just knowledge. It's just building up like a big old sort of library of information in your head.
Yeah, so one thing I would say to anyone getting into the game is what Sam just said is so correct. Networking and finding people you can trust is super vital. And I think I've only ever interacted with 1 or 2 people where one guy just outwardly said, no, I don't share information. He was actually to do with eBay, not to do with Amazon. And I was just thinking, like, if you're isolating yourself in this kind of industry, you're never going to succeed. in comparison to someone who finds a great group of people that they can trust, creates a bit of a think tank, shares ideas, maybe even shares leads if you trust those people enough. But those people are going to do so much better because every individual is going to experience different problems. And if I can learn from my mate and he can learn from me, a shared problem is half as bad, right? I don't know.
Exactly.
I can't remember the expression.
Yeah. Problem shared is a problem halved, isn't it?
That's the
But
one.
yeah,
That's the one.
networking is so key. Like, it's such like a cliche sort of thing. Like, people say, "Oh, network's your net worth," and all this, and yeah, everyone says, "Oh, networking." But honestly, it helps so much. It's the same with, like, in the Discord groups. I used to message everyone like all the time. People probably used to think I was a right pest. But I didn't really care because at the time I just wanted to know as much as possible about everything to try and just make myself grow as quickly as possible. Like, as soon as if someone posted in like a success channel, like someone, I remember the first person I messaged, back in back in the day, someone posted like a 30 grand month, which back then was huge, like absolutely massive. Like, no one was posting 30 grand months. And I messaged saying like, "Wow, this is sick. Like, how have you done this? Like, what are you doing?" And it's just getting into a conversation with them, then you just start chatting to them, and then if they post in the group, you sort of respond, just try and engage with people. And as soon as anyone posted any sort of decent results, I'd message them and say, like, "This is so good, like, you're doing so well. Is there anything you're doing in particular which is helping you," and stuff like that. And like I say, there's a few people who sort of ignored me and don't sort of respond, but you can't. Not everyone's gonna respond like that. They're just not gonna. But you'll find most people are pretty open and they're more than happy to have a conversation with you. And it's just, yeah, hassle people all the time. Don't just sort of take. You got to give a little as well. Like, people these days just message me and they just want everything for nothing, and they just ask me questions all day, every day, as if I'm just got nothing better to do, just to answer their questions, whereas they're not giving anything back at all. Whereas others would like ask questions, but then they'd also have like a bit of a chat, and it's not just like they're not just like, it doesn't seem like they're just sort of using you for information.
Yeah.
They're actually interested in talking to you and stuff like that, and they'll drop me a lead now and again. They'll sort of do this and that, and it just makes you want to share a bit more with them, really. Whereas, yeah, people just sort of take. You sort of lose the will to live after a while.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a cliche, isn't it? But you really do give as much as you get. That's what I believe, anyway.
Definitely.
I've done this on a much more minor scale than you, but I've helped a couple of people who are, they were just starting off Amazon. They were asking very basic questions in my DMs. More than happy to help because we're all starting somewhere. And just like you, Sam and I know each other because I DM Sam. I'm exactly the same with getting my name out there. And I really like the hustle. So when people ask me advice or anything like that, I really like that they're taking the bold step to ask. And I've had really nice fulfillment from people telling me that they're now doing really well. Obviously, that's all their hard work, but I was just able to give them a bit of advice. But I can imagine for you, that must just be on such a larger scale for you because of the amount of people you help in Easy Arbitrage. So you must be quite fulfilled with what you do.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, there's a few people I've been speaking to who've been in Easy Arbitrage since sort of day one, and they message me sort of all the time, and we speak quite a lot. And then just seeing sort of their figures over like Q4 and stuff, and then just absolutely smashing it. Like, seeing them doing so much better than I am, and they've just absolutely killed it. And a lot of them, they're like so grateful. Like, they'll message you. Like, there's a few people who've sent me like gift cards, like Amazon, like £100 gift cards here and there, and stuff like that, just as like a bit of appreciation. Say, "Look, thanks for helping me over the last sort of 6 months or so." And it's good to see other people win, because and I do it with all my friends as well. Like, a lot of friends always ask me about Amazon, and I always try and help them as much as possible, because I know how much it's changed my life and my family's life, that I'm happy if it can change someone else's and make their life a little bit better, then I'll definitely help out and try and achieve that.
Yeah, my sister, she's worked in care work her entire adult life. Amazing professionals, people whoever does care work, you're amazing. But it's, an underappreciated job, underpaid, overworked. And she saw what I was doing with my businesses, and she was saying, "Oh, I'd I'd like to quit and do something like that as well. And I was like, no, I was like, don't quit, don't quit. Like, it's not as simple as just buying stuff and selling it. That's it. There's a lot of work that comes into it, and there's a lot of time before you can take money out. But I would recommend anyone do it. I've given her as much information as I can. I'll try and help her get into it just the same as I would anyone else. But I would say, going back on what we were talking about earlier, definitely make sure you have a secure income first before you throw everything away, because this isn't the kind of industry that you can get rich quick on. I don't think. I'm sure people have.
Yeah. It's, yeah, I don't think it's get rich quick and in the slightest. Like you say, like I had a call with a friend a few months ago, because he like, we speak all the time. He's like a real good friend from uni, and we speak all the time, and they always sort of take the piss, saying I barely work, I don't do anything, I'm on holiday all the time, and my life's so easy and all this sort of stuff. And then, so one of my friends, he was sick of his job, so he wanted to have a call and go through Amazon. And then when I ran through like everything which he would need to do to get started, I think he was a bit shocked, and he was like, "Oh, I was not expecting this. I thought it would be so much easier and so much more simple."
Yeah, I had the same conversation with a friend.
Yeah, and I was like, unfortunately, unfortunately not. I wish it was, but there's a lot to do. It's definitely not an easy thing to get involved in.
No, particularly if you've got VAs and you're managing a team. You know, a lot of people will think you get a VA, let them handle everything, but managing a team member is in itself a full-time job. You need to make sure they're doing the job properly. You need to make sure they're finding the right kinds of products, or, you know, if they're doing your admin work, you need to make sure they're doing it to the correct standard. So even when you delegate, there's still work that comes with that.
100%, and I think having a team is quite painful at times. They are, it's quite stressful managing people.
I was going to say, I get jealous. Not really, but I always find it funny. You see all these crypto bros who invested, $100 and became overnight millionaires. And I think, damn, did I get in the wrong thing? But then you also hear about those other guys who put their life savings in a pump and dump scheme and hop to a girl, cons them out of all their money. I don't think there's easy cash anywhere. I think a lot of it is luck and hard work.
Yeah, it's very easy to get drawn into this. I've been looking at crypto a lot over the last few months. I don't really know an awful lot about it, to be honest with you. You see these people thinking, right, they invest like $40 or whatever into this whatever it's called, shitcoin, and then suddenly they make $1 million in a week or something like that. But I think there's probably far more people losing, like you say, their life savings in crypto than there is actually people making the millions. And realistically, what's the chances of you doing that off the bat? So I think it's hard not to get wrapped up in all these things you see with crypto, and I guess it's like any sort of side hustle or extra income. A lot of people get sort of blinded by numbers without realizing what actually goes into it and how hard it really is.
That's a really nice segue into the next question I was going to ask you, which was, how have you found navigating shiny object syndrome since you've been in business? Because most people I talk to, and I'm so guilty of this, as soon as you become slightly experienced and knowledgeable in business, the opportunities come up everywhere, don't they? So how have you managed to navigate through shiny object syndrome?
Not very well. Because I still do get drawn to things. I'm always trying to find like something else I can do on the side of Amazon. So I decided to open the US store, and I was sort of selling in the US for a bit, but then I wasn't really giving that much attention. That sort of fell flat. I ended up sort of probably losing money there just because of how it all works. Just because I just did not. Sorry, just because I didn't really give it like my all. That's didn't help. You see all the people in the US making like really good money, like A2A looks really good. It all looks, like you say, it all looks like shiny objects and it looks amazing. But realistically, US is pretty hard in comparison to the UK. It's very different. So that didn't go too well. And then sort of investing money sort of on other places, which
Sorry
didn't work too well.
Sorry to interject, but I just want to say it's interesting to me that you see the expansion into the US as a shiny object, because to me that falls very much into the existing ecosystem. But that I would say is expansion rather than, hey, Amazon's gone really well, maybe I should focus entirely on crypto now, or
I suppose
Shopify.
I feel like the US, like I guess it is an expansion, but it's everything seemed bigger and better in the US. So it still was sort of a bit of a shiny object because you see the margins look so much higher, people making so much more. So it just looked like a lot better opportunity than the UK. But it's
Americans have really green grass, don't they?
yes, exactly. So that, yeah, that was really one. Which I think, apart from that, I haven't really delved into too much. I've invested in a few little things which didn't go too well. I think now is pretty much mostly it's on Amazon. I'm still trying to find that extra thing which I can work on. There's a few things I'm doing at the minute. Whether they sort of play out to what I want them to play out to is another thing. Just got to try and just see what happens with that. Hopefully this year or next year they'll start to grow, and then I can concentrate on them a lot more. It's tough trying to find something else, especially like we said earlier, trying to find something else which fits the lifestyle you want as well.
Well, I think what you just said, you'll see if they pan out. In business, as an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to take risks, because even a sure thing can go tits up. You have no idea what's going to work, so you have to at least try. And I don't know, I think his name's Dave Ramsey. I might be wrong. Yeah, the Southern American guy.
Finance, he does the finance stuff.
That's the one. He had a great clip, I guess you'd say, where he was saying, you only know about me because of the 10% that worked. You didn't hear about the 90% that I tried and it didn't work. So you really just do have to A/B test everything to see what works. And what works really well for me might not work for you.
Exactly that. And I think everyone's got different ways of working and what they want to achieve as well. Like you said, what might work for me is might not work for you at all. So it's just trying to, it's just got to keep trying, play around and see what we can find and see if it works for you. And if it does, then sort of run with it, I suppose.
So I interjected, but you were telling me what the next thing was after Amazon US. What was the other one you were going to say?
I think US was the main one. I think like I said, I invested in a few other things, which like I did some YouTube automation stuff, but again, that sort of fell flat on its ass. And then what else?
Is that like faceless content stuff?
Yeah, it's just like faceless content. Like you sort of pick a niche and then just run a load of faceless content. I got sort of sucked into the whole you can outsource everything, get the VAs to do everything, and outsource sort of the video production, the scripts and stuff like that. When in reality, it's the same as Amazon. Like if you start outsourcing everything, it's just not gonna if you start outsourcing everything from like day one, it's just not really gonna go how you want it to do, which is exactly what happened there. So I didn't bother with that anymore. But I think they're the main two, to be fair. Apart from that, I've been pretty sort of focused on Amazon and then just trying to find something else. But there's nothing been too sort of shiny objecty which I've invested a lot of money or time into.
Okay, so what would you say is your biggest challenge that you've had to face since doing Amazon?
Good question.
Hopefully one that you've overcome as well, rather than this eating you whole.
Biggest challenge?
We can edit out dead air.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I'd have to, because I'm not sure how long this is going for.
Okay, so let me give you my example, which I've actually said in a YouTube short, in short form content. So I spent 2 months of my Amazon time not buying anything. While I was invested in courses to learn the wholesale model, I spent 2 months looking for suppliers, constantly hitting dead ends. And I finally found a supplier that was willing to work with someone who would accept Amex, because in the level of volume that I needed to purchase, I didn't have the liquid capital to buy it. I needed to use Amex. And I got so lucky chatting to this guy where his accent sounded Venezuelan and my partner is Venezuelan. So I asked him where he's from. Talked to him in completely terrible Spanish, won him over. He's a lovely guy, still chat to him now. And just by putting myself out there, speaking to supplier after supplier after supplier, I managed to land an incredible deal where I ended up being one of 5 authorized sellers for a very large product in Europe and soon to be the UK. And that was like my golden goose for about 4 or 5 months. And then 4 or 5 months into it, Boots started selling it. Amazon joined all the listings. Amazon completely undercut all the prices.
I think I know the product you're telling me about because we messaged about it, didn't we?
We did, yeah. I actually, at the time, I asked Sam to have a look because I just stopped getting the buy box. And for me, that was, it got to the point where it was the largest investment I'd ever made in one brand. And then it just completely died. So it was 4 months of success followed by 3 months of selling a lot of this product at a loss. So that was my biggest challenge that I had to overcome.
I don't think I've had like a super crazy sort of challenging time. I think like just managing cash flow on a month to month basis is like pretty challenging, but there's not like a one-off situation where I've thought, what am I going to do here? Like what's I've like I had no idea what to do. I think this Q4 has been a challenge. This Q4 has probably been the biggest challenge, to be honest, because it's just not gone. It's just not been a good Q4 at all. Again, the problem with that is just I can't win the buy box. And there's nothing, there was nothing really I could do about it. So I went deep on a lot of products for this Q4, and on the majority of them, I think I worked out I had about 40 which I bought like specifically for Christmas to sell well over Christmas, which I went deep on quite a lot of them. And I worked out on about 30 of them, I was not winning the buy box at all. So there's about 2,500 units worth of stock where I just could not win the buy box. It doesn't matter what price I was not winning the buy box. And I hadn't won the buy box for like 2 weeks. It's still happening now. Like I'm just not winning the buy box at all. And there's not really an awful lot I could have done about it. Like on a few of the listings, which I never do this ever, and I never advise anyone to do this. But there was a few of them I attacked the price because I thought, right, I have on the buy box for 2 weeks. I've got so many units just sitting here. I want them ideally sold in the next couple of weeks. So I attacked the price by, I don't know, 10p, wouldn't win the buy box. I'll take the price by 20p, wouldn't win the buy box. I'll take the price by like 50p or a pound below the other seller, and I just wouldn't win the buy box.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is going on? So in the end, just put the price back up. And the only thing that I had is just to wait for the sellers who are hogging this buy box to sell out, and then I can finally get sales. And like this week, it's sort of slowly kicked in. It's just a shame it's so late. But sellers have sold out, and now I'm actually getting my fair share of the buy box, and my sales have just gone absolutely mad. But it was like the whole of December, I'm thinking, what is going on? Like, why my sales are so bad? I've got all this stock. Like, if everyone says like the buy box, the statistics to like how to win the buy box, you want to be obviously FBA over FBM. You want to have a lot of reviews. You want to have a lot of stock. And what else? And I think they're like the main things. I've got
Good account
more
health metrics.
Yeah, so I've got more reviews than 95% of the sellers on the listing. I've probably got more stock than the majority of sellers on the listing. I'm FBA. I'm pricing the same as everyone else. Like, why am I not winning this buy box? That was the biggest challenge, but it was slowly sort of resolving itself. It's just far too late in the month to actually do anything of any use.
I've actually been looking into this specific issue because part of the Seller Smart community is I'm looking into the forums for updates and general chit chat around the Amazon space, and this issue has been happening to a lot of people this Q4.
Yeah, I've seen it around on X and stuff as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of speculation, which obviously I know you know this, but a lot of what you see on the forums is BS. You can't trust what people say. But a lot of the speculation that I'm leaning towards believing is that, I don't know if you've noticed on Amazon, but when you search now, most of the top listings you see are sponsored now. It used to be one or two, but now it's all of them. And there's a lot of speculation that you need to invest a lot more in advertising just to get your share of featured offer. And people who have been testing that, they've recovered their sales, but now the cost of their advertising has doubled, which I don't know if it's actually caused by that, but I've seen this issue coming up a lot. And it does seem like Amazon is pushing sellers to advertise a lot more because they're trying to reduce that tiny margin even more now, it seems.
Yeah, knowing Amazon, it really wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, it's frustrating because there's nothing really there to indicate why it's happening at all. So yeah, that was or has been pretty stressful. But again, there's a lot of things you can't really have much of an impact over. There's not really much you can do. I could have just tanked the prices to oblivion, but I'm not going to do that because at the end of the day, I still want to sell the product for a profit. So it's just a case of, it's just a waiting game. I need to wait for, as soon as these other sellers sell out, then hopefully I'll get a bit of a sniff of it. And that is what's been happening. And Yeah, it's mad. As soon as I do when they buy a box, my sales just go absolutely nuts, and it's just like, well, why hasn't this happened the last 3 weeks? But
I
it is
had
what it
a
is. What it is.
I had a deep dive in my ASINs, so I noticed we had a lot of aging stock, and I looked into why, and 30 of the ASINs hadn't been shared the buy box. So I'm on the listing where Amazon is also on the listing, which is usually fine. If people are scared of that, most of the time you shouldn't be, as long as you're competitive. And on 30 of my ASINs, Amazon hasn't shared the buy box for more than 3 months. And my stock is all costing me money in storage. I message seller support and they say you are eligible for the buy box, and I say I'm eligible, but I'm not getting it. I had to be very like, I had to send them documentation saying, the EU has just made this illegal. Amazon, not illegal, they've just legislated against this, that Amazon is not allowed to dominate the buy box on the listings. And there's actually a commission that you can report to if you see that. They're such a big player, they can just pay the fines, they don't care. But those are the only times I would say you kind of have to cut the price on the listing, because if you're not getting the buy box time, whereas cutting the price by 5 or 10p below the next seller gets it to you, your hands are kind of tied, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. I think even with me cutting the price, it just wasn't. It just
Wasn't
wasn't.
working.
Yeah, it just wasn't working. So I don't know why Amazon's algorithm just wasn't a fan of me for some reason. So yeah, it's what it is. Hopefully, I'll have a good January anyway.
My assumption is that they're doing something to the algorithm. And with any software iteration, whenever you add anything into software, it always has cascading effects on other areas of the software. So, what I'm assuming is that they're doing something still with the algorithm, and that's having an adverse effect to some sellers. I'd like to hope that if that is the reason, it gets resolved pretty quickly, because I don't know anyone who has had the buy box issue where, say they've been selling for 6 months, it's lasted the entire time. Eventually it does resolve itself. It's just frustrating, especially at this time of year where it's meant to be your best sales of the year. Very frustrating.
Yes, it is very frustrating. Yeah, like I say, not a lot I can do about it. So I need to just sort of ride with it, and then hopefully it'll all sort itself out in January. Everyone else will be sold out and off the listing, so hopefully I'll have a bit more of a free reign to sort of do what I want.
Yeah. So, all right. To wrap it up, we went on a bit of a critical tangent there, but to wrap it up in a positive way, if you had to give advice to someone who was wanting to get into Amazon, with all the knowledge that you now have, what advice would you give to someone, especially if they're a bit scared to take the leap?
Network as much as possible, like we mentioned. I think networking is super key. Just message and speak to as many people as possible. I think you need to take risks. Don't be too afraid to take risks. You're not gonna get anywhere if you don't take risks. That's pretty key. I think just try and absorb as much information as possible. And I think if you're in groups, whether it's Facebook groups, Discord groups, anything like that, just ask questions and speak as much as possible. A lot of people sort of just hide in the shadows and they don't really say anything. They sort of observe what's going on, which is great. But I think getting amongst it, getting in the conversation, speaking to people, and I think that helps out loads. Because as soon as if people see you're active in groups, the people sort of tend to try and talk to you more. They see you're more approachable, and then that way you can sort of grow your network quite a lot. And yeah, but I think networking's key. If you're starting, just try and network with other sellers in the similar sort of area to you, like say at a similar level, and just share information with each other, share leads with each other, share this, that, and the other with each other, because it'll help so much. Like I still do it now. Like I've got a group. There's 4 of us in this group. We're all very sort of similar level. We speak all day, every day. We send leads to each other all day. We message each other all day. Like if someone was looking at a listing, saying, "Look, I've seen on this listing, all these sellers have dropped off. The price is looking like this," and he'll notice something which none of us will notice, and then we can then sort of action upon it, or we'll look at a lead and something, oh, it's no good, and someone else, well, actually, have you looked at this, because it probably looks all right now. And it just helps so much. Like putting a couple of heads together will make life a lot easier. So it's just ask every question under the sun, speak to as many people as possible. They are the two the two key things, and take risks. You need to risk in life and in business in order to sort of get
Especially
value out of stuff. Exactly. Yeah. 100%. Definitely.
I
They
think
like you said, there's like 18, 19-year-olds who are making tens of thousands every single month. So there really is no excuse. Yeah,
I,
you can definitely do it.
I love it. I love seeing young lads who are like 16 to 18 year olds, 15, 16 to 18 year olds who are like really driven to make a career and make something of their life. I think that's one positive thing from social media, because when I was 16 plus, I was an absolute pisshead, you know. My idea of a good time wasn't making money and making a good life. It was making bad decisions. So I really like the fact that young lads are getting into this. I think
I
we
think
only
it's absolutely mad. If I was age and making that much money, I would be absolutely laughing. I think it's unreal that people at that age are doing it. It's fair play to them.
Yeah, I think the only things I would add on to your suggestions would be that watch 2 to 4 hours of YouTube videos on how to learn the model, and then just try. So many people I speak to, especially in my own friendship group, they're always like, "Oh, I'm gonna do this one day. I'm gonna do this," and they never actually apply action. You're not going to get anywhere in life if you're someone who constantly dreams but never does. You have to spend a few hours learning it and then just try. And if you make mistakes, guess what? That's part of the journey. You have to make mistakes.
Exactly. I made a lot of mistakes doing this, but it's all, like I say, it's all just part of it. And it's the same with any business, right? You're always going to make mistakes. And I think that's why it's key speaking and networking with people, because a lot of that you can sort of stop that from happening by speaking to other sellers. Like you can say for months and months and months, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. You need to just pull your finger out and actually just get started. The worst thing that's going to happen, you're going to waste, I don't know, if it's not for you, you're going to waste a couple of months. You might waste a small amount of money, but nothing too drastic that you just sort of go back and start your life and do something else. But I think you need to give it a try to really understand it and sort of know if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, I think we can call it a day there. So, Sam, thank you ever so much for your time today.
Thank you very much. Thanks for spending the time to chat to me.
No problem. And to anyone who's watching this is our first episode, so I'm not sure anyone's going to see it. But yeah, thank you for your time. Have a good day.
Cheers.